Guys, I just finished a stream of 5.5 hours of Counter-Strike 2. I played it, no problem. I had a ton of fun. And guess what? I was running on Linux. Let's talk about it. As always, let's start with a little bit of context. Counter-Strike 1.6 and Counter-Strike Source have been the game where I put the much more hours, I believe, ever. And those type of games really pushed me toward like my competitive age when it comes to gaming. I was invited in the Counter-Strike Go pre-launch alpha more than 10 years ago. And I played like 160 hours on it, and I was not fan of it. Something was off. And I decided to not play this game anymore. But watching some of my buddies on Twitch, on YouTube, like playing Counter-Strike 2 during the beta, which was also like just available on Windows, not on Linux, it kind of gave me this itch about playing the game again. And man, I was so happy when they released the game 3 days ago. So the 27th of September 2023, Valve pushed Counter-Strike 2 for everyone. The game itself, I won't be able really to talk about the balance and everything related to, you know, like esports, because I didn't play enough, to be fair. And I'm pretty sure you're gonna find a lot of YouTubers who are gonna have more in-depth thought on those subjects. But what I can talk about is how the game ran on Linux, because the game was available on Linux day one with a native version. No Proton, wrapper, like nothing. Day one. I've been mentioning Windows and Linux multiple times, and there is a reason behind it. It's a topic that I believe is not talked about enough when we talk about Counter-Strike 2 on Linux. So if you look at the Valve store page and you go at the system requirement, you will notice that Windows run on DirectX version 11. You can also play it using Vulkan instead of DirectX 11, but on Linux right now, it's only available for Vulkan. And that's the reason why they mention here that for the graphic card, you need an AMD GCN Plus or an NVIDIA Kepler Plus with up-to-date Vulkan driver. And on top of that, they had the support for VK EXT graphic pipeline library is highly recommended. So from that, you understand where I'm going. It means that if you have a graphic card which is not Vulkan compatible or doesn't have a lot of performance within Vulkan, running it on Linux is gonna be a pain. It's gonna be disgusting. On Windows, however, well, you are on DirectX 11, so you're gonna have, I would say, like a better chance to have higher FPS on Windows. That's kind of sad, and this is the reality of what it is. So if you go on forum and you look at all those Linux users complaining about the performance on Linux, there is a high chance it's because they have hardware which are unfortunately not supporting Vulkan drivers the way they are supposed to. And by that, I'm thinking about the NVIDIA user who are running a 10,000 series, you know, like those GeForce 1080 Ti for naming this one. I'm telling you guys, you're gonna have to change your graphic card if you want to play this game on Linux. Maybe Valve is going to release a version supporting DXVK, but that I can guarantee. The other approach you could have would be to run the Windows version on Linux and translate it through Proton. Would I recommend it? No, because you could get banned by the VAC system, and I don't want to be responsible for that. You do you, but me, I wouldn't do it if I were you. So now we covered the difference between the Windows version and the Linux version. There is still something they have in common, is the fact that the game right now is not well optimized. So I've been running the game on Windows to try it. I can tell that it's a little bit stuttery. Overall, like the experience, it's a little bit less smooth than the one on Linux. However, if you run the game on Windows, you're gonna gain a lot of FPS. And this, I believe, is related to the fact that the Vulkan version needs a little bit more work. And the game was not even in beta for the Linux user, so I believe they're gonna have to work on this version to make it like reaching the level of Windows. So to give you an idea, with my machine on Windows, I will be running between, I would say 400 to 800 FPS while playing a deathmatch on Dust 2 with everything set to high. On Linux, I will be more around like 270 to 400 FPS while playing the game. It's really rare when I go above 400 FPS. It's really situational. You can tell like there is a huge disparity between how the game runs right now in between Windows and Linux. The good news is that Valve has been like crazy about the update and the patch. And since Wednesday, they have been pushing 1, 2, 3 patch already. On this patch, the first day patch, the patch day number 2, I got an uplift of 10% on Linux, like straight 10%. If you look at the GPU usage on Linux, you can see that my GPU is just underutilized, and that's the reason why I have less FPS. So I do believe they're going to be able to fix that in the future. It's just more like an optimization type of phase that they're going to have to go through to make the game run better on the Linux machine. Again, I won't talk about balance, about server registration, heat registration, like tick rate. I don't want to get there because I'm pretty sure a lot of people are going to be able to cover that better than I do. What I would say, however, is like it's not that bad. I remember when I was switching from Counter-Strike Source to CSGO, I played the alpha, as I mentioned earlier, and one thing that's really tap on my nerve was the heat registration at the time, which was not as great as CS Source. And I remember it was one of the reasons I decided to stop playing. So just give Valve some time and looking how motivated they are. If they keep the rhythm, it's just going to be insane. Like we're going to have a really well polished game in less than a month. I'm not even kidding. The game is still not perfect. And I want to mention other issue you're going to go through, which will be like totally normal right now, 3 days after release. And the main one is related to the sound on Linux. When the game was released, there were like no sound at all. You had to do a little trick on the command launch to make it work. Now, after the patch of day 2, no problem. You can launch the game without any command line, it would work. But you can see that the sound is still causing trouble with the Linux version. So after like 2 hours, 2 hours and a half, depending on what you do on the machine, you're gonna have some type of like delay between the sound and the game, and it's gonna throw everything out. Like no heat registration, nothing. I was playing a competitive match, and for 7 rounds, I didn't know what was going on. And it was related to this issue. I found a way to solve it, which is pretty simple. Like you just restart the game. But let's say you can't restart the game, you go to your option and you switch between your sound device, sound output device. You go back into the game and it should be all right. So I hope they're going to fix that pretty fast because it's pretty game breaking. And I know a lot of users are going to be like, oh, it doesn't work, blah, blah, blah. It's going to be pretty negative. But you can still fix it on your own. I just explain you how. Now, I read a lot of different issues that I never encounter on my machine. But it doesn't mean that it does not encounter to everybody else. What I would say, it's really related to your hardware or the desktop environment you are using. I've seen like, or even the protocol display. I've seen some guy who had like their window flickering, who had like their screen turn it off, not having access to the keyboard, like crazy things. I will share the command line I use to launch the game, and I will share right now some recommendation for you guys to have the best experience on this game after you do what you want. But with those configuration, I know I had no issue in this game and also on most of the other game for reducing input lag and making Linux really a safe place to play competitively. So the first thing is that I wouldn't recommend any distro. I don't think the distro is really important. The thing I will recommend though is to use a custom kernel. I will recommend the TKG custom kernel. They are above the pack. Compile it yourself. If you want me to make a video about how to do it and go through the whole process, just let a comment below. I will make a video for you guys, like in detail. But this is super important. The second one, and especially for Counter-Strike 2, is that you need to have the latest driver available for your graphic card. For AMD and Intel, the latest Mesa Git, and for NVIDIA, the latest proprietary driver. Those are really important because if you don't have those one, the graphic pipeline library won't work and you're gonna have a lot of stutter because your computer is gonna be compiling the shader on the background. And you don't want that. By using the latest driver, it's gonna do it through the graphic card and it's gonna be way, way better. Another tweak that really helped me on Linux was to use game mode. I don't know why, but it kind of like pushed my CPU to a higher rate on this specific game. And sometimes it's a hit or miss to use game mode, but for my experience, game mode was a big plus. So run the game with game mode through the command line. It's a game changer on Counter-Strike 2. The other one is a choice of desktop environment. I would recommend going with KDE for multiple reasons. I won't mention it. KDE is the way to go. You can use it on other desktop environment, but make sure you're going to be able to deactivate the compositor. So that's another point I want to mention is like have a desktop environment in which you can deactivate the compositor. This can make miracle when you play a game like that, and especially when it's related to input lag. And the last one is Wayland. So I know there is a lot of video about Fedora and the direction toward Wayland. I know on my side, I tried Wayland and it never worked. Like it's working, but it's not compatible with competitive gaming. And if you see some type of comment on internet of a random guy telling, oh yeah, but for Wayland it works. Well, bro, yeah, it works if you play a one-player game with vsync activated. If you want to play a game like Counter-Strike 2 and you need like the minimum input lag ever, well, Wayland is not the place to be. Maybe it will be in the future, but today it's not. So run the game on X11 and you will avoid a lot of headache. Just my 2 cents. I really hope this video helped you to understand what is the actual situation with Counter-Strike 2 on Linux and how it compares toward Windows. I didn't do any in-depth benchmark or anything else because each time I made a video, a new patch came out and it kind of like changed everything. So it's the third or fourth time I'm actually recording this video, and that's why we are doing like more like a high-level approach type of the game. And maybe like 3 weeks, 1 month, or even 2 months from now, I'm gonna get back at it and share my overall like perception of the game. Also, I'm gonna share with you below like the link of the stream I made just before for you to have like a great idea of how it works and how it doesn't work right now. I think the stream is really representative of the state of the game. So yeah, if you want to take a look at that, don't hesitate. And yeah, that's all. Like overall, it's super positive. I believe they kind of like push the game a little bit early for the Linux user, but looking at how they're acting on the other side and they are willing to push updates on a daily basis, I'm super, super optimistic. This is good for us, Linux user. I'm telling you, this is really good. Really, really positive. So yeah, that's it. That's all, guys. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to give a thumbs up if you like the video. Subscribe too, like I really count on you guys. And if you want to support the channel financially, I have a YouTube membership here and a Patreon. Don't hesitate to do it. I want to thank all the members who have been contributed for so many years. Guys, thank you very much. I see you in the next one. And until then, have a great rest of your day. Take care, guys. Bisous, bisous.